Building an online presence is a must. That job you're looking for, that promotion you're seeking, that business you want to explore as an entrepreneur, an online presence and a strong network will accelerate all of your dreams. But how? You might be an introvert and just wondering, wait, this is not for me. I can't change my personality. Or you might have trouble understanding how to filter what to say, what not to say when you are online. Or how do I get started? Or how do I keep going? Well, I couldn't ask for a better guest to talk about this topic. Today, I will interview Patrick Kelly, a chief technology evangelist and distinguished architect, an influencer in his own right, an amazing public speaker with a massive audience, who constantly shares tips about building your own brand and why this is so important nowadays. I'm excited. I know we will learn many valuable lessons in this episode. Patrick, thank you so much for being here.
Wow, that was a heck of an introduction, Mateo. Thank you. Wow, I I didn't even know I did all that stuff, but happy to be here, and I hope I learned something too.
Very good. You do all of that stuff and more. So let's get started with the basics for the benefit of the audience. Patrick, what do you do today for a living?
Oh, for a living? For a living. What pays the bills here? I am a distinguished architect at Zoom. So I basically work on our product team. I've been here at Zoom for around about 4.5 years here. And before I worked at Zoom, I worked for a small software company you might have heard of called Microsoft for 12 years. So as you can imagine, yeah, they're going to make it. I think they're going to make it. Those guys are really rock and roll. So as you can imagine, I have a lot of conversations with not only internal people, right, our AEs, our SEs, and engineers, but also external people. I do a lot of executive briefings, a lot of customer meetings about that story, how Zoom and Microsoft coexist and integrate, and so that's what I do here at Zoom.
Very good, very good. And did you always want to be in technology? How did this story, let us go back in memory lane. How did you get started?
Oh my gosh. Well, if you got a few minutes, how I got started. I grew up on a small farm and ranch in southeastern Colorado. So grew up on a wheat farm and a cattle ranch, and I absolutely hated it. It was so much work. I mean, the more respect to farmers and ranchers, because I know what it takes to be a farmer and a rancher. And my goal was to, one, go to college, right? Because back in the day, this is back in the 80s, right? I'm dating myself here. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. Your career path was you graduated from high school and then you went to work on your granddad's farm or your dad's farm. And
Right.
More respect for those that do. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to play football. My goal was I was really good in football and sports in high school, and I really excelled, and so I wanted to go to college and play football. And it took about 10 minutes to figure out that I was in another world when it came to Division I football, because those guys are aliens. Like, they're gigantic and they're way faster than I ever could be or wanted to be, and they're way bigger. And so my college football dream died in about 10 minutes. So I'm like, well, I better probably do something else. But I was so played college football, and then I went to my scout team coach at the time said, "Hey, what are you doing after you graduate from college?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. Do you have any ideas for me?" He's like, "Hey, I just got the head coaching job at this smaller college. You want to come coach college football?" So I'm like, okay, I can't play. Maybe I can coach college football. And so I knew I had to write my master's thesis. Back in the day, you actually had to write your thesis on a typewriter on a computer, because no one ever had their own computer back in the day. Everybody just had these labs in college. And so I bought my own computer because I knew I wouldn't want to go to the library. So with my college money that I got from when I graduated, I bought my own computer. And then I started playing games on the computer. And then I started like swapping out the hard drive for bigger hard drive. And I started swapping out memory, and I started swapping out the graphics card. And all of a sudden, this computer really became an obsession. And I literally I'm like, this is something. I'm onto something. And then my college football coach, we used to write our plays on paper. Like back in the day, people, it was crazy. People used to use paper to write their plays on it. And
Yeah.
he had this new program. He's like, hey, can you, it converted the paper plays into plays on a computer that look really nice and pretty. And he's like, you're the one that knows about computers. Can you do this? So I started doing that. And then the athletic director's printer broke. And I'm like, I could probably fix that. So all of a sudden, this computer thing became me as a persona, and I started being able to, I was like the go-to guy to fix computers and set up computers. And I mean, you know what, this is my passion, this is what I love doing. And so no, I did not, to answer your question in a short way, I did not grow up being in technology or wanting to know. It just kind of, just life led me down that path.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And you fell in love with it, and you fell in love with trying to understand how it works, right?
Yep.
From what you're saying, you were always learning how it works and how to make it work better, right?
Yep, exactly.
And then as you started your career in technology, what were some of the pivotal moments or decisions that shaped your path to success?
Wow. So my very first job was working for a company called MCI WorldCom. And for those of you that don't have gray hair, there used to be this thing called long distance calling back in the day, right? You had to actually pick up a phone and dial like a long distance number with area codes, and you got charged per minute to do that. There was local calls and long distance calls, and there was billions of dollars made in long distance calling. If you're a Generation X or millennial, you have no idea what that means, but just trust me, it used to be there, right? And so my first job was I was running cables through, walls. I was carrying printers and monitors, and I was doing grunt work. Like that's your first job right out of college. Like you gotta pay your dues. And and I remember there was online there was a website called monster.com. This is where everybody posted all their jobs, and it was like this new way to apply for jobs. And on a whim, I was looking for jobs one day, and I saw a job at ESPN, right? The giant sports casting company here in the US. And on a whim, I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to apply for this job. And not even expecting anything. I was just fun. And I remember I got home that night, and my roommate, Ty Gasnikar, runs up to me. And this was back when caller ID was a brand new thing. Like, remember caller ID? It used to be this separate box that you connected to your phone. It would show you the who called. It was really cool.
Yeah.
This is 30 years ago. That's
Yeah.
what was cool back in the day. And he ran up to me. He's like, dude, ESPN just called. I'm like, what? And we looked at the caller
showed
ID,
up there.
and it said ESPN on that. We're like, oh my God. So Jesse Myers, who was my boss, I applied for this job. I was not qualified for this job. I didn't have the technical chops to apply for this job, but I was hungry and I wanted it. And I remember I flew out to Bristol, Connecticut, and Jesse Myers gave me the opportunity. I guess he felt something in me, or saw something in me, or heard something in me that said, hey, this guy will do it. And so that was probably the most pivotal point in my career, is that I actually tried for something that I was not qualified for, but I had the energy and the drive and the motivation to succeed. And someone saw that. And from there, it just kind of took off.
It's beautiful. And you just said two words there, and I can see that, right? I can see your videos. I can see the energy, the drive, and it's contagious, right? I think I'm around you and I'm more energetic, more driven. So that you have a superpower there. When did you, so in your experience, right? Why is building an online presence so important? And when did you start doing that?
I think there's a saying that you could be the smartest guy in the room, but no one will know unless you speak up. Right. And I think today we all have resumes that we write, those 1-page, 2-page resumes of their bullet point list of all the things that we've done, the schools that we went to, the certificates we have, blah, blah, blah. There's recruiters and companies get thousands of those sent every single day. But from a piece of paper or two, do you truly know who that person is? You have no idea who that person is. You have no idea what's the way they speak or the way they present or the knowledge they have. Sure, it shows you, hey, I went to college or I got a certificate, but that doesn't truly show how knowledgeable you are. And so today, I think the opportunity of whether it's YouTube or LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or Threads or whatever platform is out there, you could showcase your knowledge. You could be a living resume to yourself. And so social branding to me really exemplifies a way technology can showcase you as a person. And I think social branding and just personal branding is something that almost everyone should do. And especially in today's world, right? There's rarely like my grandfather, he was a farmer his entire life. He had one job his entire life. Rarely is that done. I bet most of the people listening are not going to be in the same job their entire career because maybe they're not passionate about that job anymore, or their company goes out of business or gets assimilated by bought out. So you're going to have multiple jobs throughout the course of your career, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40 year career, it doesn't really matter. And so personal brand is above and beyond what you do for your career. Personal brand is who you are as a person. And so in today's world, it's like a walking resume of who you are, right? And so I've worked for Microsoft, I've worked for ESPN, I've worked for Citrix, I worked for Zoom, I worked for some really great companies, and I've done kind of the same thing along the way with technology and UCAS and CCAS along the way. But I never had the opportunity to showcase who I was as a person until I really started personal branding. I started it probably 5 years ago when I was my last year at Microsoft. I started doing some Teams videos. These were faceless. Like there was just a demo on how to turn your audio on or how to turn your video off. I just would do a
Right.
screen share and show it live. And then people started asking for more and more videos and more demos. And I became a little bit more comfortable doing longer ones. And then I started doing live ones, right, with a camera, which was freaking scary, right? Being able to be on camera and because everybody hates their voice and hates what they look like. And it's just part of the process, right? And so it just kind of organically grew just from there.
So around 2019, you started.
Yeah,
it's
probably.
2024. And so quickly you have built so much. Tell us a little bit about, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? What worked, what didn't? If you could go back and tell your 2019 person, hey, I've been doing this for 5 years and I learned a few things.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about
that. First, you have to conquer some fears, right? And I don't think anyone ever grows up saying, hey, I would love to be a presenter or a public speaker. Like it scares the hell out of most people to think I'm going to get in front of a crowd or in front of a camera and speak for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes about a topic. And I better be able to have a point, have a story, resonate. Like no one grows up thinking they're going to do that. And
Right.
so my initial start is some of my early videos I cringe at. One, the quality is horrible. Just the things I say because they were completely unscripted. I literally would just turn the camera on, wing it. There was no editing involved. It was one shot and I just went. So a lot of times and especially in the beginning, I would open up like with a humorous story, maybe a little thing, a ditty about me or my family or my dog. And I thought it was entertaining. But when you're dealing with social media, they want you to get to the point fast. Like they don't want to spend 5, 10 minutes listening to you some dumb story that you thought was funny. They just like you have a title of a video, say, hey, here's how to turn widget X on. They're watching that video to learn how to turn widget X on. They're not watching that video to say, here's the life in the last 5 minutes of what Patrick Kelly has found entertaining. So that was kind of painful because I had a lot of people comment like, get to the point. Like, I didn't watch this video for you. And you're like, whoa, okay. So fair enough. Right. And so I started transitioning from trying to be humorous and funny in the beginning to just literally getting to the point, right? You don't have to make a 10-minute video and 8 of it's trying to be a funny guy. Just make a 2-minute video about what people are watching. There's a time and a place, right? So I learned that every video should have a single point and that is it. If you want to make a video about a funny story, then do a video about a funny story and title it that way. Do a video about widget X and title it that way. So it took a while to learn how to do like social media, social branding videos. I'm still learning, honestly.
It's beautiful. So facing fears, have a script, do some editing, get to the point fast.
Real quick.
One video, 1 point.
That's it.
Don't go crazy on trying to talk about a lot of things. It's funny, Patrick, because I'm learning. I do a lot of videos myself, and as you're speaking, I can, the things you're mentioning are things that I do, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, next time I'm going to do it in a different way. This is amazing. So how can someone get started? What are some of the most effective strategies? Someone is listening to us, right? And they don't have an online presence and they are just trying to get started and thinking, how on earth am I going to have even content for, even one piece a week, right? What are some of your recommendations on how to get started?
Well, one, you have to find what you're passionate about. Right. And that is a life journey. When you are 15, you might think you're passionate about something. And when you're 20, you're probably going to be passionate about something else. And 25, it's probably going to change. And so the point is, you need to find what you love to talk about, because that's the only thing that's going to motivate you to create content based on it. Right. So if somebody said, hey, Patrick, could you create a channel on writing blogs about real estate law? I would hate that, because I, one, have no desire to do any of that. It's boring to me, but it might not be boring to some other real estate attorney that loves doing it and is passionate about it. I'm not passionate about that. I'm passionate about me as maybe showcasing UCaaS, right? Or our phone or meetings or technology in general in the communication and collaboration space. That's what I'm passionate about. And that shows, because if I wasn't passionate about it, I wouldn't create content on it. So one, find what you're passionate about. That's the number one thing. And that's just a life journey, right? It's certainly and it doesn't even have to be about your career. Like, you can have a social branding presence that doesn't even have to deal with your career, right? You can have a hobby that you like, and that's just part of that journey. Two, you're going to have to, I said it already, but you're going to have to be able to be comfortable in front of the camera and being authentic if you want to do videos. You don't have to do videos to have an online presence, right? You can really be on LinkedIn, post pictures, post infographics.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to be able to create content, and that's going to be two different forms. One, video and audio content is one, but also written content. You're going to have to be a pretty good writer, right? Because you're going to have to write a lot of scripts and a lot of content, even if you have a video. Every single LinkedIn video I produce and showcase on LinkedIn and or YouTube, if you notice, there's also a pretty verbose paragraph that I wrote in front of it defining what I'm talking about, right? So you have to really get good at communication skills, and that's either video, audio, or written. If you can combine all those, the content is certainly the most important part. Do I have DSLR cameras here and professional lighting and lighting in the background? Yes, that's all super cool, but that's all in addition to creating good content. I can literally just grab my phone right now, and if I have good content, people will watch it. That's that simple. So don't worry about all the other extra stuff. Worry about creating content that will resonate, that has a point, and that shows who you are as an authentic person. That's really important, is that we could all write a script, we could all put it in a teleprompter, and we could all read it. But how do you really, does that show you as authentic? No, that just shows that I can read. That doesn't really help anybody, right? I can read. Okay, great. But who are you as a person? Social branding is really being authentic. And I'm not saying, hey, tell all my family secrets or anything like that. But I want to see who you are. I want to see your personality. I want to be able to relate with you somehow. And you have to do that, or people are not going to watch, not going to be able to follow you. You're not going to get a following.
What about storytelling, right? And how to structure. When and how did you learn about how to, you mentioned 1 point per video, and then was it something that came natural to you on the flow of the script and the content and the storytelling, or something that you learned? Both? How does it work?
Yeah. Again, it's a learned skill. Like everything, it's a learned skill. You have God-given talent, right? Just, you were born with, whether it's physical or emotional or intellectual capabilities. You certainly do. But if you don't work at those, they're never going to get better, right? And so, like Tiger Woods, he was literally God-given with athletic ability to be a great golfer. Yeah. But he wouldn't have been the world's best golfer if he didn't put 10,000 hours of work into being a good golfer on top of all those skills. So Are we all born storytellers and presenters? Absolutely not. We might have some innate abilities that allow us to be better, but unless we work on that, it's never going to get better. I grew up, I said, on a farm and ranch in southeastern Colorado. I didn't have TV growing up. I didn't have the TV growing up. I had to entertain myself all the time. And it wasn't like I grew up in this big neighborhood. I grew up in a farm in the middle of nowhere. I didn't have neighbors. So I couldn't just go outside and ride a bike and play and go play video games and watch TV. That was not my life. I had to entertain myself. And a lot of times I was on a tractor like 12 hours a day during the summer. I was literally on a tractor 12 hours a day. And in my mind, I would create these like stories in my mind, and I would, kind of tell them to myself, and I would change the characters or change their personalities and make a plot and make a story. And then I went to college, and most of the people I went to college with did not grow up on a farm in the middle of Colorado, and these were kids like from LA, right, to New
Right.
York, and they're like, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, what was it like growing up on a farm?" And I would start telling these stories about what it was like to ranch and drive cattle and raise pigs, they were enthralled. They're like, because this is so foreign to them, right? And
Right.
I really got better at just telling stories purely to entertain everybody. And then as I got into my career, I wasn't a storyteller, I wasn't in front of a customer, but as I got farther into my career, I was put in front of customers, and I was put in front of, whether it's pre-sales as a consultant. I was now having to now transition from this technical role to a customer role. But I was so technical at first, I would just try to impress people by just spouting off technical stuff. And I would just see the glass fall over their eyes, and they're falling asleep because they weren't technical people. They had no idea what any of that meant. But as I grew, I started transitioning from how to tell this technical stuff into a story so people understood it.
Yeah.
And so it took a lot of time and effort and a lot of failures before I finally understood that people just want to relate to what you're talking about. How is all this technical stuff going to help me in my job? How is it going to help my employees be more productive and effective and efficient? And that's being able to tell a story that resonates with your customers. So that's kind of where it started, and that's kind of what I do today. I really, when I get in front of a customer, I basically say about a 30,000-foot view of here's what it's like, and here's why this feature or modality is important. Not just, hey, we have this brand new feature. People, I don't care. How does that feature make my job easier? And you're gonna have to tell a story about that.
I love it. What do you think about how technology is helping people build an online presence?
I think YouTube created everything, right? YouTube started this whole file repository of videos, and then TikTok, and then Instagram, and then Reels, and then Shorts, and then LinkedIn started, because remember, LinkedIn didn't always do videos. Like,
Yeah.
they were a long time, they were just like a jobs platform. And once they started doing videos, now we can transition from entertainment to enterprise and consumers. And so we've all been down the path of, hey, we started on one YouTube video, and an hour later we're like, what was I even here for? Because I just got sucked into this YouTube void, because that's what YouTube wants you to do, right? They want you to stay on as long as possible so they can throw more ads at you the whole time. But the whole point is, technology has allowed us to be able to learn at an exponential rate like never before. Right. And so now today, like when I was on, again, back to the farm, when I didn't know how to do something, guess what I had to do? I had to figure it out. That was it. There was no one around to ask. I didn't have a book on it. I couldn't go to the library. I couldn't go on the internet and just search for it. I had to figure it out. It took me endless hours of figuring it out. Did I? Did it make me smarter? Yeah. Did I know how to do it? Yes. Probably better than I ever did. But today, I don't have to do that. There's no learning curve. I can literally I can literally go to YouTube, and somebody has probably posted a video on doing it, right? You don't know how to hang a ceiling fan? Go to YouTube. How to hang a ceiling fan. There'll be 1,000 videos on how to hang a ceiling fan. You can learn, you can do this stuff because somebody else has put the effort in to teach you. So that's what technology has allowed us today. It's allowed us to have a medium where we can create content that teaches people how to do things almost immediately. And we can now pass on our knowledge that we've gained over 20, 30 years of being in industry. We can now pass that on to people in a really, really creative way, right? So technology certainly allowed us to be able to open our minds to everyone on the planet if they truly wanted to be on the platform and showcase something they've learned and share it with somebody. That's what technology allows us to do. Now, of course, we can do that with better lighting and better cameras, and we can do it with production studios. But we can also just do it with our cell phones. We can now teach people stuff that might have taken us 5, 10 years to learn, and they can learn immediately. That's amazing to me.
Immediately, anywhere around the world.
Correct.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
What do you think about AI generated content, right? There's text, there's video, there's the work. It's like, it's everywhere, right? What, how do you feel about that?
We're in the infancy, right? AI is relatively new to us. AI has been around for a while, but in the last, I would say 6 months to a year is now when we're trying to implement that into our daily lives, right? We've always known, remember the movie Terminator? I think AI was around 1984, but we didn't have a usable case for it until now. And so now, if I was just watching the Olympics the last couple of weeks, and every other ad is a Copilot ad, is a Salesforce AI ad, is a Google Gemini ad. It's everywhere, right? But the more importantly is how are we going to utilize it to make our life easier and better and more productive? That's the real component. So, and today, you can use AI to compose a brand new email. That just saves me 10 minutes, right? I can use AI to compose a brand new whiteboard. That probably saved me 20 minutes. Those are real world scenarios where I, as a user, can be more productive and effective by using AI to say, hey, generate a whiteboard with the top 10 presentation skills. That would have taken me, again, 20 minutes to draw all the boxes and type all that stuff in. AI can do it in seconds. That's a great way to utilize the content. Where we get into the gray area is I'm a senior in college and I have to write a paper on the Civil War. I can literally go to GPT right now and say, write a term paper that's 500 pages long on the Civil War. And within seconds, I will have that term paper. The problem is I didn't learn anything about the Civil War, did I? I learned nothing about how to write and how to present. And I learned absolutely nothing. Did I get the assignment done? Yes. But the whole point of learning is to learn. You've now skipped that whole part by using AI. So there's a gray area of creating AI to do the work for you, but there's also a way how to use AI to help you craft that. I be fully disclosure. Sometimes when I'm on LinkedIn, I'll say, hey, ChatGPT, write a LinkedIn post on this topic.
Yeah.
What it allows me to do is the scariest thing to me is just a blank canvas.
Right.
Like sometimes I just don't know how to start, right? But now AI has created a framework where now I could take that really dull AI created content and now massage it and make it my own and brand it with my own personality, right? My own words, my own authenticity. Now that's the power of AI to me. And another example is I actually use ChatGPT to create images. I'm not a super artistic person. I can't create like great Canva graphics that look really pretty, but ChatGPT can. And I was like, hey, I need a picture of a puppy. Guess what? Within seconds, I have a picture of a puppy, and I didn't waste an hour of my time doing it. I don't need to learn how to make pictures of puppies. That's not what I make for a living. That's not what I do for a living. That's not going to help me. But if I can use AI to help me create content, not do it for me, that's a better use. And again, we're really early in this infancy of how we're going to utilize AI. And so I don't know. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong answer yet, but I certainly know how I use it.
I love it. And you keep going to a topic that I think is very important, which is authenticity, right? You mentioned, and it needs to look authentic. Otherwise, people are going to tell, right? You can tell.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I go to LinkedIn. I spend a lot of my time in LinkedIn, right? And I can see the people that are just shooting out canned content you didn't write that, right? I mean, you sound just like another 1,000 people that are writing the same way, right? So I like what you say about using it as an inspiration, but then bringing your own personal stuff to it. Now, let's go back to authenticity. And sometimes professionals get scared about it, right? how do you keep the balance between being authentic and not going too far on, for example, LinkedIn, which is a professional network?
Yeah. Excuse me. That's another gray area. There's not a 0 or a 1 answer here, right? It's certainly, you have to feel comfortable with yourself first, right? If you don't know who you are as a person, then how are you going to showcase you as a person to other people? Like, you truly, and that just takes some years. That's just how it is, right? And again, we're different people at 53 than I was at 16, right?
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't mean I wasn't authentic at 16, but I didn't really know truly who I was as a person. Now, after being in the world for a day or two, right? I know exactly who I am and who I'm comfortable with being. And I think once being authentic is really being true to yourself. It's not trying to be someone else, right? Is certainly, we all have different personas in our life, right? We have a family persona, we have a dad persona, we have a husband persona. Those are all different, drastically different people. I don't talk like this way in front of my wife. Like, this is not how I talk all the time, right? This is not what I do. I couldn't do this all day long. But there's a podcast persona, right? There's a customer persona. We have to flip that switch, and they can all be different personas, but they can all be authentic as well. Like, that's not different people. It's just a different version of who I am. So this is my podcaster persona. I have a customer persona, but the point is, I have to know what those are and who I am as a person in order to showcase that authenticity, showcase throughout videos as well as in person. So being authentic is a lesson in life, and people can tell real quick if you're not authentic, right? It's like when you watch a car salesman commercial, you're like, that guy's not authentic. I don't believe a thing that guy's saying, right? He's got a salesman shtick on, and I don't like it at all. And so that's not being authentic. Is literally, I like to at this point in my career, I can be brutally honest with customers, even if it's not the answer they want to hear. Because now I know over the course of my relationship with that customer, I've hopefully going to be a trusted advisor to them. And if I'm selling them something that I just, hey, I have a number to hit and I have to sell this, 15 of these this month, I'm going to do anything I can to sell this. Is that really authentic? No, that's just being a sales guy. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a sales guy.
Yeah, no, no.
Just, but what if I can be a sales guy, but also be authentic? Now there's some validity in that, right? And that's the true value of being authentic.
Yeah. And building relationships because of that authenticity. I 100% agree with you. So how do you see the future of online branding, right? How is it going to evolve in the next 5 to 10 years? I know technology goes super fast, so this is a kind of a tricky question, right? But what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, when everybody asks me what a 5-year plan is, I'm like, that's impossible. That's impossible to answer. You have no idea what a 5-year plan is because you don't know what you're going to do in 5 months. And so where technology will go, who knows? But I think one thing that it's always been around communication and collaboration with obviously customers, coworkers, colleagues, friends, family. We've just done it in different methodologies, right? Like, we used to do it in person. Like, 200 years ago, their only way to talk to somebody was to walk up them and talk to them and communicate with them. Then we had telephones, right? Then we could really talk on the phone with them, and then we could write letters to them. Then we had telepresence, right? Back in the day we had telepresence, and then we can get in a video with them. And now everyone can do this all the time. Now I can meet people all over the world real time with technology.
Yeah.
But under all that technology, we're still talking, communicating, right? Verbally, non-verbally. That's all we're doing. We're just doing it electronically now. So I don't think that ever goes away, right? It's certainly Zoom and Teams and WebEx have certainly made it easier, but there's nothing better than, hey, I would rather meet Mateo for a cup of coffee at a coffee shop and shake your hand than doing it like we're doing it now. This is how we have to do it today because we're forced into it with obviously global and global effects of being apart. But in 5 to 10 years, whether it's 3D animation or holographic images, underneath it all, we're still going to be talking, communicating the way we do today.
Let's talk a little bit about failure, right? Are there any particular failures that you're actually proud of because of the lessons you learned, and how you were able to embrace that failure for the growth in your career?
Well, there's an old saying my granddad used to say that said pain causes change.
Right.
Pain causes change. I didn't really get that when I was 15 years old. I thought, well, that's just dumb. Pain doesn't cause change. But we learn from our failures. We rarely learn from our successes, right? And my grandfather, again, he was an old man. He just had all these sayings, is that success doesn't always mean you're doing it right, and failure doesn't always mean you're doing it wrong. But that's how we view the world, right? Like, hey, I'm winning. I'm an Olympic gold medalist. I did it right. Okay. I mean, you won, right? But did you do it right? I don't know, right? But the world creates this thing that says, hey, if you win, you're a winner. You did it right. But there's a lot of times we actually learn a lot more from losing than we did from winning. And when we lose, either it drives us down and we don't try again, or it drives us up. We want to keep trying and trying and trying to be successful. And we want to keep changing until we are successful and are winning, but because we knew what it took to lose. And when I was at Microsoft, I was the deployment engineer. I was a network engineer. I did all the geeky stuff. I would sit in the data center deploying stuff. But I wanted to be in front of a customer. I wanted to be in pre-sales engineering. I wanted to be with sales guys, and I wanted to be at customer sites and talking to them and telling stories. And so I applied for a pre-sales engineer job, what they call a technical solutions professional. And I didn't even get like a callback, and I just got an immediate rejection letter, right? So I tried again and again and again. And I literally tried 38 different times to apply for a sales position at Microsoft. And every time I was told, you don't have any sales skills. You're not in sales. And I'm like, you're right, but how do I get sales skills unless somebody gives me a chance? Like there's a catch-22 here. I can't really do it. And so I was a little frustrated, and I was talking to a friend in the industry that worked for a partner, a channel partner in the Microsoft space. And he's like, hey, I know this company that's looking for somebody that has Microsoft knowledge, but wants to be a solutions architect. So basically a pre-sales engineer, and they're hiring right now. So I interviewed for the job, and I got the job, even though I didn't have any sales skill. This company gave me a shot, and I flourished. I knew I would. I knew it would succeed, but I just needed the shot to do it. But I had failed 38 times to get this position, but it still drove me to drive to really want to be in sales. And I worked for that company for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then I had not only the Microsoft knowledge, but then I had some sales experience. And then Microsoft came back about 2 years later, like, hey, we have this job open up over here. Do you want it? I was like, absolutely. So those failures drove me to really fill those gaps in my career that I didn't have. But if I had just quit, I would have never been where I'm at today. But I kept driving. All those failures made me who I am today.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
One last question for you. What do you do when you are not working?
What do I do when I'm not working? Well, you might have noticed there's a motorcycle or two behind me here. So I am a big motorcycle enthusiast. I all these motorcycles behind me, by the way, I actually built as a hobby. I build motorcycles, and a lot of times they're old, like 70s, 60s, 70s Harley Davidsons, shovel heads, pan heads, knuckleheads. Every once in a while, I'll build that's a deluxe over here. Today I'm building a Street Glide, but I like to build with my hands. I do a lot of the projects around my home. I rarely hire somebody to do it because I like doing it myself, not just to save money, but because I really truly like doing it myself. I build Harleys. We actually have a boat too, so I'll go out on the boats. We live next to a lake, so I do a lot of boating, and that keeps me pretty busy, honestly.
That's beautiful as well. And do you think there's something about growing up in that ranch and fixing the tractor and driving the tractor that got you close to like understanding machines, and there was nobody to teach you about it and you learned? And the motorcycle, do you see any connection there, or am I driving it too far?
No, you're absolutely right. Is that again, back in the day when I was a kid, like you had to just figure stuff out. And that created a puzzle solving mindset, right? And I became analytical and I wanted to solve problems all the time. And now they were complex problems, or they could be easy problems. The point is, my mindset was that, hey, I now have to fix this myself. I'm going to sound like my grandfather now, is that I have four boys, 21, 21, 18, and 10. They grew up in a world that was not a farm or a ranch, right? They were city kids and they didn't have to go and figure things out their own. But even when they had to figure something out, they could literally, again, go to YouTube and figure it out. They didn't have to figure it out, though, did they? They just watched somebody else that had to figure it out. They just
Right,
copied what that guy is doing.
right,
So now the younger generation, again, it's like an old man, doesn't have that innate problem solving ability because that's not the workflow they live in. That's not the world they live in. They can get immediate gratification and solve everything immediately. Like my 10-year-old, he plays Fortnite all the time. And if he can't solve a level, you know what he does? He just looks up how to solve a level and goes through it. I'm like, you didn't figure it out then, did you? You just copied somebody else that figured it out. So you didn't really solve anything. You just copied somebody else. So yeah, all those things that I grew up having to do in my youth have led me to be very analytical and very problem solving, which has helped my career now, where I'm literally helping customers solve complex communication and collaboration problems.
beautiful. I don't know if I'm old as well, but constraints will bring that creativity forward and
Yep.
problem solving. I completely agree with you, right? And in design thinking, everyone talks about it, right? Once you start having constraints, then the ideas start popping up, right? So
Yeah.
Patrick, this has been amazing. I appreciate you. I love your story. I love the way you talk. I love your content. And now I have an episode with you and a lot of content that I can go look back to learn how to do what I do better. Thank you.
Oh, it's been a complete pleasure. I hope I'm glad you learned something. I always enjoy talking about things other than just work. I sometimes just get tired of talking about the same thing, and being able to connect with people around the world, it opens my eyes and increases my level of appreciation.